I had.
Okay, I've just started it recording now. Hopefully it will.
Hi Miriam, I can see that.
Well, 13 of us.
Oh, hi Miriam.
Hello.
So exciting.
Hello, everybody.
It's been a
Hello, Guy. Hi.
Hello. And I think people will just come and join us as and when. It might not be that everyone's here at the very start.
No.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say congratulations to you all because of your books.
Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank
That's
you.
really
Thanks.
That's really sweet of you. Thank you. That's really kind.
You're welcome.
Because normally there'd be a load of chat over some bubbly and milling about and all that kind of thing. And we're trying to recreate this all from, the comfort of our own homes, but, without such things, I suppose. So.
started with this anyway. I'm trying.
Oh,
Yeah, try again. Oh, there we are.
Got tea.
Right.
I love the one
I'm just
not-
starting now.
Yeah.
how do I, Oh, it's okay, cool. Yeah.
I'm just sharing that for the moment while people come in, and then I'll switch it off.
Yeah. 29 minutes past.
Probably give it sort of, I don't know, 2 minutes past 7:30, maybe. Do you think?
Love the animation. Very good.
Michelle did that. She's brilliant.
It was very much like, let's learn how to do something. Yeah, it was,
Did you do the actual movement of it then?
no, that was the video, like a stock video clip that I found. If you search dark wave on video clips, you'll probably see it come up about 5th.
Very effective.
Giving away all the secrets now.
I'll stop sharing and then we can see how many people are in.
Yeah. If you go to participants, you can see the list.
Yeah.
20 in total, 21.
Okay, great.
Brilliant. Everyone's arrived while we were doing that.
Yeah, that's good. I think there'll probably be a few more. Let's see.
It's lovely to be on this side for a change. I like it.
I've really, like, seriously considered getting your wallpaper just for this event, because I saw it pop up on yeah, I saw it online at some point and I was like, I need to, what I was going to do is get a chipboard and just put some wallpaper behind me.
I'll send you the link to it later on.
Fantastic.
Everybody's being very disciplined and muting themselves. I haven't had to mute anybody.
It's the age of Zoom though, isn't it? You know the drill.
Yeah. Oh, hi Alison, did you have a nice holiday?
Yes, I did. Thank you. Sorry, panic to unmute there.
Did you see Benedicta's here, Alison?
Did. Hello, Benedicta. Yeah, it's good to see faces. And Yvonne's here as well.
Hi, Alison.
Oh,
Where's Yvonne?
Hi,
Oh, yeah.
Helen.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hi, Teresa. I've just had a message from my sister to say she's got an invalid ID when she goes into the meeting, but I think you shouldn't need an ID, should you?
No, you just need the link. Can you message her the link? Or
I have done.
she should come straight in.
I'll try again.
Send it to her as a clickable one. Where's Charlie?
28 of us. That's nice. Very healthy.
So,
Oh, I think there's, yeah.
So do you want to hold on a couple more minutes? Or
Is everybody okay with that? Yeah, we had an awful lot of acceptances, but obviously people can't always make it on the night. So
I've got 1 or 2 people that might come in part way through.
okay.
Yeah.
It's Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi, Helen.
Hi, thanks for coming. It's nice to see you.
Thanks for inviting me.
Oh.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
It's very exciting.
You're going to be hearing all about it.
Good. I'm looking forward to it.
What do you think? Should we make a start,
Yeah.
Laurence, and let people join? Hi, guys. Can't stay long. Okay. Cheers, Dean.
Dean, you're happy that I make a start?
Yeah. So hang on. Shall I just mute? Is everybody happy to mute themselves? And then, you can unmute later if you want to ask a question. And Laurence is going to take over.
Okay. Well, whilst you're doing that, I'll kick off. Some of you know who I am. Some of you don't know who I am. My name's Laurence. I work for Darkstroke Books, which publish the 3 titles that we're talking about this evening, the launch that you're very kindly attending today. Thank you very much for your time. It's a real pleasure to see so many faces, and I mean actually see faces, the wonders of Zoom and all that stuff. It's lovely that I'm on this side. I'm usually on the other side, sort of flapping my feet under the water, but I'm just doing the talking for part of this. So I'm introducing this session, which we're hoping is going to be an hour, maybe a little more than an hour. And it's an opportunity for you to get to know the work of Helen, Michelle, and Guy. And they'll do some readings for you, and there'll be some questions between the 3 of them. But there's also an opportunity for you to ask them any questions as we work through. Your microphones have just been dipped, so those questions initially could come in through the chat window, and you'll see hopefully there's a pop-up that's appeared that says, hello, chat is open. If you think of something to ask, please do ask, and we can pick up your question nearer to the end, or maybe one of the speakers will pick up your question as we go. There'll be contests, competitions, prizes, right? And each of the 3 authors will tell you a little more about the contest, the competitions. And then I'll be back towards the end to wrap up things and to take any final questions. Just before I move on and pass across to the first speaker, I wanted to introduce each of them, not at a fair amount of length, just for a minute or a minute and a half. And I'm aware that some of you know at least one person. So this will be of interest, hopefully, to you. So Guy Mankowski is the author of Dead Rock Stars. He was the singer in the 90s signed band Albanova and went on to play guitar in bands like The Beautiful Machine. His novels include The Intimates, a 2011 Reed regional title, Letters from Yelena, winner of an Arts Council Literature Award and featured in GCSE training by Osiris Educational, How I Left the National Grid, written as part of a PhD in creative writing, and An Honest Deceit, winner of an Arts Council Literature Award and a New Writing North Reed Regional Award. He is a full-time lecturer at the University of Lincoln. Over the weekend, Dead Rock Stars, his book, made it to be 2nd spot in its Amazon ranking. Helen Matthews is the author of Facade. She is fascinated by the darker side of human nature and how life can change in an instant. Helen was born in Cardiff, read English at the University of Liverpool, and worked in international development, consultancy, human resources, and pensions management. She fled corporate life to work freelance while studying for a creative writing MA at Oxford Brookes. Her stories in flash fiction have been shortlisted and published by Flash 500, 1000K Story, Reflex Press, and Love Sunday magazine. She is a keen cyclist covering long distances, if there aren't any hills, sings in a choir, and once appeared on stage at Carnegie Hall, New York, in a multi-choir performance. She loves spending time in France. Facade is our best-selling new release of September.
Thank you. I didn't know that.
Michelle Cox is the author of Tipping Point. Michelle lives in Worcestershire with her husband and 2 young children and a cat called Lyra Belacqua. By day, she works for the NHS, a job she has almost as much passion for as writing. Her first joyful steps into creative writing were at the age of 10 when the teacher read out her short story in class. A slapstick tale of 2 talking kangaroos breaking out of a zoo, the work was sadly lost to history. Still, Michelle never forgot the buzz of others enjoying her words. More recently, she has had several flash pieces published, was longlisted for the Cambridge 2020 Prize for Flash Fiction, and placed first in the February 2020 Writers' Forum competition with her short story, The Truth About Cherry House. Today, Tipping Point is in the top 10 new releases on amazon.co.uk. Michelle, I think you're the first of the 3 authors to speak this evening. Can I pass across to you to speak?
Yes, of course. Just want to say thank you to everybody for coming. It's lovely to see so many people, and I'm so glad that I'm doing this with 2 other writers because it just makes it more fun and just less nerve-wracking, maybe. So I'm going to start with just reading out a little passage from Tipping Point. Probably should just explain where it comes from, really, otherwise you won't have a clue what's going on. So there's a part in the book where Essie, the main character, is meeting up with an older man that she's been chatting to online. She has met with him once before, where she got a little bit drunk on tequila and let slip that she's been involved in some environmental activism, which is illegal in Essie's world. And she also, after a bit more tequila, made a pass at this guy called Jack, who rejected her, and she's been basically ghosting him ever since because she's too embarrassed to talk to him. But then he pops up online again, begging her and saying it's just something really important that he has to talk to her about. So she agrees, and this is what happens.
Come on. Come on.
We've got cats joined us. Right, okay. In the evening, the crowd at the Cuckoo is ebullient. I'm a little late, but Jack's not there. Josie nods at me from behind the bar and slides a neat gin on a coaster in front of me without comment. The coaster is a piece of folded notepaper. His writing is small and spiky. We can't talk here. Drink the gin casually, don't down it. Then take a scenic route to the river bridge, don't get followed. My insides cramp. What the hell is this about? Does he know Toby followed me? I hurry my gin, trying not to look like I'm hurrying my gin. With no idea why, I glance around for people who might be watching me. Glass drained, I clamber off the bar stool and wave goodbye to Josie, who shoots me a concerned frown, but says nothing as she pulls a pint. Night has fallen, and my pulse flutters as I reach the river path. Jack is sitting on the bench dedicated to Lila Etheridge, who died the day I was born. His sweat-slicked face fixes on the dark water, and he doesn't seem to hear me approach until I say his name. Jesus, Essie, you scared me. He presses a hand to his chest and glances around him. Yeah, I have that effect. I pop onto the bench beside him. He hesitates. How have you been? The tightness in his voice makes me feel bad. Good, I say, okay. Did anyone follow you here? No. Thanks for coming. I realise I have no reason to. What's this about, Jack? He takes a long, slow breath. In a minute, I'm going to take an envelope out of my pocket and pass it to him. Put it in your bag quickly. I'll explain afterwards. What the hell? His agitation radiates across the warm space between us. Please just trust me. I will explain. I just need to make sure you get this first in case anything happens. What's going to happen? Please, Essie. His raised voice echoes under the bridge. He ducks his head down. Even in the moonlight, he looks like he hasn't slept in days. His clothes are crumpled, his prairie dog eyes dark in shadow. Please,
Hello. Where are you going?
You don't owe me anything. But this is really, I need you to help me to do something. Will you help? It's a hard decision to make with nothing to go on. When I nod, a small lumpy brown envelope appears. I pluck it from his fingers and stuff it in my little shoulder bag. Thank you. I breathe deeply in the swampy air, giving me time to think. This isn't drugs, is it? You're not stealing drugs. He laughs. It's not drugs. It's probably worse. I raise my eyes to the sky. Silver-tipped clouds scuttle away from us as I await. Your protest group. Can you trust them? Eh? You have a leader, right? Yeah, he grabs my arm. I don't want the name. Don't tell me the name, for God's sake. Just, can you trust them? You're confusing me now. I look at his hand, still gripping my wrist. Not to mention hurting me. He releases me. Sorry. A group of lads crossing the bridge. One of them looks down at us and whistles salaciously as Jack turns his face away. The gang explode into laughter, but pay us no more attention as they move on. I turn aside to his shadowed face. What's in the envelope, Jack? You're going to have to buy the book to find out what's in the envelope, I'm afraid. I can't read anymore. Thank you. Thank you for the silent applause. So yeah, that's quite a pivotal part in the book. So I just thought it was quite interesting to share that with you. So now I move on to probably the juicy bit, which is I've got a couple of quiz questions for you, and there are prizes. So the first prize is a local delicacy. Can you see that? It might be backwards, I don't know. But it's Cadbury's Dairy Milk, which is made just down the road from where I live. And if you tell me you like dark chocolate, there's a bonus as well, which is Bourneville, which is Cadbury's dark chocolate range, named after the area in Birmingham where Cadbury's are based. So for that, all you have to do, cliffhanger and chocolate, yep, thank you, Claire. All you have to do is answer this simple question, which you can answer by going onto the Amazon page where Tipping Point lives and looking in the look inside function, and you will find the answer staring at you. The question is, what was Essie's mum's favourite flower? So I should explain, but you're going to have to be quick because I think Charlie knows by the look of it. To answer the question, there are specific instructions. You need to message me in the chat, but just me personally, so that nobody can see your answers. So if you do that, and also if I don't have you on Facebook already, then just drop me your email or something like that. So if you do win, I'll do a random prize draw tomorrow. And if you do win, I'll be able to contact you. So that's question one. Question two is a bit harder, but I think the prize is better. So it's a copy of Dark London, which actually there are some contributors here tonight, I think. So this is an anthology from Darkstroke authors. I think it came out last year, which is a selection of short stories which are dark in nature and based in London. And it's fantastic. So you're going to have to work hard to win this one. So what I want you to do for that one, and again, if you give me answers in the chat, I will save them and look at them tomorrow, is I actually once got an idea for a book from Richard Osman's House of Games, which is a quiz show that's on in the UK, for those that don't live in the UK. There's a round in House of Games called Mouse of Games, where you have to change one letter of the title of a film or a TV show and create a new TV show. And you have to say what that TV show is about. So what I want you to do is do the same thing for a title of a book. So if you change one letter of the title of a book and then tell me what that new book is about in a sentence or two. It doesn't have to be one of the books we're launching, but you do get brownie points if it is. So you've now got from now until for the rest of the event to think up something ingenious. And then the one that I think is the best tomorrow, I will contact the winner and they will get a copy of Dark London sent to them. So does that make sense to everybody? If there's any, okay, yes. You know what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's clear. Brilliant. So I think it's over to Guy, is it?
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say that that's me done, unless you know, if anybody needs a bit of time. But I'm quite happy to hand over to Guy now if you're ready, Guy.
Very much. That sounds great. I don't know if Helen, you want to pull up the quiz screen.
Yeah, do you want the quiz up now, or are you going to do your reading first?
Let's crack on with it, and then I'll do the reading after, if that's all right. Hello,
Okay.
everyone. Thank you all for coming. I can see loads of faces and names at the top, so I'm really touched that so many people have come. Thank you. I know it's all a bit awkward at doing everything online at the moment, so thanks for taking the time out. I just wanted to say thank you to Laurence, my publisher, because he's been, this isn't going to turn into like some kind of Oscar speech, don't worry, but he's been very helpful, and it's been really good launching a book with two other authors, and Helen and Michelle have just been really wonderful to work with, and I'm really grateful to them for organising so much about this evening. So before I just read a bit from my novel Dead Rock Stars, in the spirit of the evening, I've pulled my finger out enough to generate one slide, which is a quiz. And in the chat, I'd like people to name as many of these four bands, these four 90s bands, as they can. People might not have the same obscure taste in music that I have, so people might not have all four, but I'll have a look, and whoever, thank you, whoever gets the most wins a £10 Amazon gift voucher. Now, the reason I'm doing this while you type the answers is that my novel Dead Rock Stars is set in the 90s, and the first scene of it is set in a venue called the Purple Turtle, where I played with my band back in Camden back in the day. I think it's just about still there. And what I thought I would do, oh, I can see someone's already said Smashing Pumpkins. Oh, good. We've got someone who's got three. Well, that's cool. So we have a lead runner at the moment. I'll come back and I'll check how that all went. Yeah, so I'm just going to read from the first couple of pages of the novel, really. Just a little note that I would add. I don't really need to give any background information if it's the beginning, but what was kind of curious for me with this, which hasn't happened with previous novels, is I wrote this story, or the beginning of the story you're about to read, just as a bit of light relief when I had other novels on the go that I was very kind of serious about and had lots of ambition for, and was trying to put all these intellectual ideas in, and they just weren't really working. And the scene that I'm about to write was me just writing something for fun. And it was just interesting how the story kind of took hold. So without further ado, a couple of pages from the beginning of Dead Rock Stars. The only time I saw Emma play a proper gig was in August 1999. I would replay it in my mind so many times. It's a hot night and the summer holidays have peaked. They're coming to an end, and the retreating crowds in Camden prove that. There are a few bodies around the tube when Mum and I get off and walk down the high street. Hippies in plaid trousers, stalls selling sunglasses, bad replica t-shirts of bands I've not heard of. Truth be told, I'm scared, and as I pass my reflection in a shop window, I see a boy with terrified eyes, a single multicoloured braid in his long, dirty blonde hair. Mum is fighting a clear sense of disdain. She removes her Gucci sunglasses with perfectly polished nails. Her Dior perfume is like industrial strength air freshener in this backdrop of hemp and skunkweed. I know these smells because of Emma. The idea was always that I wouldn't become too familiar. Mum is scared that going to this gig will make me all the more enthralled by my sister's lifestyle when she's here to attempt to cleave her from it. But Emma has won the battle for my innocence that she waged with our parents, as we're on her turf tonight. Near the lock, the fresh orange juice stall churns bright globes into pulp. The vinyls on the stalls we pass are trapped worlds of possibility. Around the lock, punks sit at sticky benches, legs lolled over the wall. I wonder if there'll be any girls at the gig. We can't be far off it now, Mum says, and I notice stress lines at the corners of her mouth. The venue is called the Purple Turtle, I answer. Mum winces at a man playing a djembe on the pavement. Venue, please, she says, more like den of iniquity. We realise we should have got off at Camden Town. Mum has never walked this far, at least for as long as I can remember. The venue is on a busy corner, and outside the queue is a straggle of threadbare boa and dulled leather. Plastic jewels sparkle on wrists, and makeup is yet to crinkle. I'm going to attempt to find myself a passable glass of wine, Mum says, as we move inside. Her handbag is at the crook of her elbow. I stress the word attempt. Can I have a beer? This is a gig and my mum is with me. No, you'll have a Coke and you'll enjoy it. She heads for the bar, reeking of self-regarding afternoons in John Lewis. She smells like parental rallying at sports day and post-argument sulks with dad. At the bar, I overhear her ask the barman for a white Zinfandel. The barman says, I'm sorry, but we don't have any pale ales. My mother looks at him as if he is a cat who has just cocked its leg and peed directly on her foot. As the barman turns away from her, she hisses the word shithole with a passion that sounds like it's come from the bottom of her soul. I see a raised stage and on it a lithe, ratty man wears an open waistcoat to show off his six-pack. We're Portal and this is our next single, he says over the noise. I realise that they're not sound checking. This is it. The night has already started. A hollow-eyed girl in a leopard print coat is sat in front of a desk on which I can see various cherub-related items. There are pink powder compacts with their heart-shaped logo on the front, a white ballerina music box with their name emblazoned on it in red, a set of posters tied with pink ribbons, and marbled vinyls fanned out on top of postcards of the band. I begin to appreciate how hard my sister has worked crafting the world of her music. There's a knot of people at the front, a few feet back from the stage, and Cherub come on. My first sight of Emma is announced by Mum, who says, in a low panic, there she is. I look up to see Emma on the steps by the stage, bending over to check her black Telecaster before darting out of a fire exit. She's wearing a black baby doll dress with a white Peter Pan collar and black Mary Janes with frilly white socks. In her bleached blonde hair, a silver tiara is nestling. Her guitarist, Melissa, and her drummer, Donna, stay on stage and seem to debate something for ages while Melissa fiddles with an amp. Their hunched body language is unnervingly fixed. I decide there's some technical problem that, by the looks of it, is insurmountable. I sense Mum's impending triumph and the way she'll revel in it. All middle-class elbows and triumphant phone calls while Emma stays in the background looking irreversibly bruised. You all right? I ask Mum as she sips her wine. She blanches. Band would look a bit more professional if they stayed off stage until the set started, she says. Emma's not on stage, I say, sipping my Coke. I hope she puts loo paper on the seat before she sits down in places like this. Don't tell anyone you're her brother if you're asked. You're too young to be here and I don't need the new school finding out. This remark annoys me on so many levels. Some pretty girls in vintage fur are standing near the stage and I'd have loved the chance to play the role of the innocent younger brother. Mum's expression suggests he sees this thought in my mind. Not a word, Jeff, she says. You have plenty of time to hang out in places like this when you're older if you decide this is how you want to live. I have already decided this is how I want to live, but I am sharp enough not to admit that. When Cherub do come on stage, it's gradual enough to betray their amateurism. My heart beats hard. Emma's eyes are lined with thick, dark kohl, and it gives them a shine and luster, an eminence I've not seen before. Certainly not during the morning she sat in her bay window, all bruised legs and missing strings, chopping at her acoustic guitar. But tonight, my sister has transformed. Thank you very much. It's kind of, it's interesting to see like ghostly hands clapping, like you feel like, okay, but that's all I wanted to read out. It's a bit of a taster of the beginning of the novel. And a lot of the novel is about Emma's diary that Jeff discovers after she tragically dies, and him coming to terms with that and what really happened, and getting to know his sister through that diary. So that's a bit of an insight into Dead Rock Stars anyway. Thank you all for listening. I think we'll move on to Helen then, if that's okay. If you're ready, Helen.
Yes, yeah, and I quite like the format that you've done by doing the quiz first and then the reading. So yeah. I'll do my quiz and then you can all not listen to me reading while you try to solve the quiz. Is that okay? Cool. Right, back to share screen. So in my novel, let me get it up first. Right, okay, so yeah, in my book, I've got lots of properties. Those of you who might have read it or helped me critique it will know, right, okay. Yeah, we'll know that I've got like an old rectory as one of the sort of central characters, but there are other properties as well. So my quiz is to win a £10 Amazon voucher, is who would live in a house like this? So on the next 4 slides, I'm going to show you 5 different properties, and I'm going to show you alongside them pictures of celebrities or fictional characters who've lived in a similar house. The houses are different on each slide, but the people are the same. And on the final slide, I will give you the names of the people in case you still need a clue. But this is fastest finger first. So if you guess it at any point, which you won't be able to do till you get to the final one, you put it on the chat and send it in. Okay, here goes. So the first one is an old rectory. And the people are named 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and you'll see the same people again on the next slide. All okay with the old rectory? Okay. Next one is a gamekeeper's cottage, which also features in my novel Facade. Same people, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Property number 3 is a narrowboat on the Regent's Canal at Little Venice. And one of these celebrities or fictional characters once lived on a narrowboat for a time. So again, have a look at their faces, they're the same people. Number 4 is a Victorian house in Streatham, South London. So there is a street in Streatham, South London that features in my book. It's called Sunnyhill Road. And I actually lived in that road myself for quite some time. But this character or celebrity also lived in Streatham, but sadly not in Sunnyhill Road when I lived there. And the last one is a house in Spain. So it could be a house or a flat in Spain. And I'm asking you which of those 5 people might have lived in a house or a flat in Spain. And now I'm going to show you the names of the people if you haven't got them already. So here's a reminder of the houses, which I'll leave this up while I'm reading. So character number 1 is Jane Austen. Character number 2, I hope you recognised, is the lovely David Harewood, who played David Estes in Homeland. Number 3 is Keira Knightley. Number 4 is Mellows from Lady Chatterley's Lover. And number 5 is Michael Douglas and Catherine Zeta-Jones. So if you want to start putting your answers on the chat, I'll now read a very, very short excerpt from Facade. I'm just thinking, do you still need the screen up? No, you don't. No. Okay. I'm going to stop share because I can't see you. Okay, great. Okay, so this is just the last few paragraphs of the first chapter of Facade. That's my book, for those of you who haven't seen it. And the book opens in 1999, although the main timeline of the story is in 2019, which is 20 years later. My character in 1999 is called Rachel, and she's 17 years old and she's revising for her A-levels. Okay. The last thing Rachel remembered was snatching up her earphones and jamming them on. The foam covering was peeling off and black plastic scratched her ears. But she turned the music on her Walkman up louder. The jerky beat of My Name Is drowned the clamour, and Eminem's lyrics took on a trance-like effect. Sunshine slanted through the leaves, stinging her eyes. She closed them and leaned her head back against the trunk of a silver birch, just for a few minutes. A shout woke her, then a scream. Awful, curdling, loud enough to penetrate the flimsy earphones. She pulled them off, the wires curled like a tangled necklace. Footsteps pounded on the stone steps that led from the upper terrace of the old rectory to the gravel courtyard below. The scream morphed into a wail, followed by more shouting and her mother's voice, shrill and desperate, shrieking, "George, Georgie, wake up, baby." Rachel shivered. She crept to the fringe of the copse and peered across the lawn towards the house. Her view of the lower courtyard was blocked by figures bending over something. Above their head, she could see the top tiers of the ornamental fountain, the statue of a nymph balancing an urn on her head and holding a fish with herringbone-etched scales under her other arm. The fish's lolling head spouted water into the deep pond beneath. The air stilled. The birds fell silent. Her mother was cradling a bundle in her arms. Her father pulled off his shirt and spread it on the ground. As they both knelt on the grass, Rachel had a clear view of her parents bending over the inert figure of her baby brother George. Heart hammering, Rachel shrank back into the shelter of the trees. She shivered, then she ran, her bare feet carrying her rapidly, not towards the scene, but away. That's it. So, thank you for the virtual clap. That's great, thank you. I'm going to pop in, I'm going to see what I need to do next, and if I don't have to do anything, I'll pop into the virtual chat and see who won. Oh yes, I have got to do something next, so you have to wait. Sorry. Guy.
I just had a question, if I may, Helen.
Okay.
One of the things that we decided to do is as authors, just ask each other questions. And I've been very fortunate to read Helen and Michelle's novel, and I can really vouch Helen's is really gripping, and I hope you all get the chance to read it. I just wanted to ask Helen, if I may, we see the world through the eyes of different characters in your book, and I wondered, is there a certain character's perspective that you particularly related to?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I always try not to base characters on anybody, you know, that I know. But I think I did relate to Rachel as like an overburdened working mother, because I've spent an awful lot of my life being that. And I always felt guilty that I wasn't there enough for my children when they were growing up. But now that they have grown up and they're in their 20s, I'm happy to say that they've turned out a lot better than they would have done if I'd been the main person always looking after them. And the other thing I think in the book is that there are two sisters in the book. They're the main characters, Rachel and her sister Imogen. So I also have a sister. And when this book was being published, I said to my sister Fran, there are two sisters as the main characters in my book, but they're not based on us. I said, but if you think they are, then I'm the bad one. To which my sister replied, well, that's no problem. You've had years of practice at that. So that's the extent to which anything was based on me. Not very much.
Because I naturally related to Rachel when I was reading it, and I can really relate to what you were just saying, because I had quite a lot of fun with the character of the mum in my book. I'm fortunate that my own mum is absolutely wonderful, in many ways the opposite of the character in the book. But I suppose when you start to put a novel out, you start to think about how people are going to read things, don't you?
Yeah, and people do. It's quite remarkable. You know, you could write something about I don't know, sort of somebody who lived in Australia, and even though you'd never lived in Australia, people would ask you, well, you know, how was it when you lived in Australia?
Yeah, or you get this really hackneyed thing of, oh, by Australia, he's talking about the time he lived in County Durham. You know, like you get kind of direct interpretations of what's going on. Oh, thanks, Helen. That's interesting.
Oh, cheers. Thank you. Okay. I think it's now my turn to ask Michelle a question, which would be great. I've read Michelle and Guy's books and thoroughly enjoyed them, and I've reviewed them. They're both super 5-star reads. Michelle's book was quite interesting for me, because I haven't read, I know somebody who's writing something similar who might be here tonight and might be interested in Michelle's book. I think she is here. She's waving. Yeah, her name's Rose, yeah. She's made herself known. So anyway, so my question for you is, George Orwell set 1984, 35 years in the future. It was published in 1949. But you've set Tipping Point only 15 years in the future. Is that a reflection of how urgent you think the climate crisis is?
Yeah, it's a bit of a worry, isn't it? I think I did originally set the story in a bit further in advance, so I think it was like in the 2060s. But there were a few things that just didn't sit right. So my main reason for writing it is that I wanted it to feel like today, really. I didn't want it to feel distant from our experience now. So that was one way of making it feel more immediate, that actually it is recognisable as our world. It's not crazy sci-fi. And that was another reason why I kind of brought it back closer to home, really, is that when I was writing it, I kept coming up with questions for myself, like, would there be flying cars? Would people even have televisions? What would laptop look? And I just thought I didn't want to write a sci-fi. It was about society, really. It was about people. So I wanted to dispense with all that. So that's why I brought it back, so that, you know, there aren't that many questions. There's a little bit of, you know, technology's skipped on a little bit. We've got driverless cars in there and stuff like that, but it's not really the main point of the story. So there was that, but also you're right. I think I did get to a point where I was thinking, well, in 2060, we've either got to have solved this problem or we're probably not going to be writing novels. So it did feel urgent. It felt like it needed to be immediate, really.
Yeah, I mean, I can vouch that it's very, very chilling. And the chilling bit is that so many of the things that you describe about the state, you know, the police and so on, just feel like we're just a hair's breadth from it could happen. And that's very, very scary. So
yeah, I've scared myself. Actually, I remember Charlie reading it and telling me that she felt sad and anxious after the first chapter, and I was like, brilliant, job done. That's what I wanted to achieve.
Don't sell it as a Christmas book then. Buy it now. Don't wait till Christmas.
Yeah, it's not all that depressing, but yeah, I wanted people to have to think about it.
Thanks very much, Michelle. That's great. Thank you.
I think I've got to ask somebody something now, haven't we? So let me check. Yes, I wanted to ask Guy. So I've also, obviously we've all read each other's books. It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it? But yeah, I've really enjoyed both. But what I really loved about Guy's book is the character Emma. I just thought she was so well drawn. She was this great sort of mix of, you know, over brash and overconfident and, you know, kind of quite rude at times. And this inside, when you see her internal world, she's really quite brittle and very vulnerable. So having had this conversation about, you know, basing it on people that you know, I just wondered, because I know you were in the music business, were there people that floated into your orbit that you could see that in them?
It's interesting because you were talking about in your novel the chilling aspect of the present day and where we think it's going, and I think for mine there's a bit of an element of escaping back into my childhood, and I was obviously brought up on the Isle of Wight and the 90s music scene, and one of the things that I have a real connection with Emma's brother Jeff is that he gets all of the music magazines and he really pores over them, and from a distant place on the Isle of Wight, feeling a long way from London, they're like kind of postcards from where things is really, really happening. And Emma comes from one of those reviews. I remember reading, for some reason, it really kind of stuck with me. I read a review of a band. This is before I was in them myself. It was a band called Twist, and it was a young woman who's a teenager, and she was clearly really grafting, and she put together this vision for the band, and she dressed them in this way. And the Melody Maker did a kind of a dismissive, kind of snidey review, and this woman had obviously put her heart on her sleeve and got up on stage, and it really connected with me. And I think that Emma's a bit based on her. And one of the things I really enjoyed writing Emma's diary is showing all the kind of spit and sawdust of being in a band and trying to scrape together money for a rehearsal room, and really having a creative vision without sort of sounding too pompous, you know, an idea of something you want to make real, bring out of your imagination, bring into the world, and then how you can use a band or by extension a novel to do that. And I loved really showing Emma's detail and what it's like to kind of scrabble up you know, each rung of that. You know, I remember really working hard to record a demo of some songs and giving them to people who I knew were really good musicians at Durham University, where I was doing my degree, and I just couldn't wait to hear back from them, were they going to join a band with me? And I didn't hear back from one of them for weeks, and he was the exact guy I wanted in the band. And I remember walking past a restaurant and he was just there kind of eating chicken wings, and he wasn't in a hurry, and I was just thinking, oh, like my future's tied up with you, you know. And I remember that sort of feeling of desperately wanting stuff to happen. And so there's a bit of me in Emma, a little bit as well, I think.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the experience of writing a book, isn't it? You kind of pour your heart and soul into it and then send it out into the world going, oh, I can't wait for them to read it. People are going to be amazed. And then they are, obviously, but then sometimes they're not.
I think that you're really right. What was quite strange is that when I wrote Dead Rock Stars, it wasn't called that at the time, but I didn't have that much going on. I had bits of teaching, just little bits and pieces of stuff. It wasn't kind of as hectic as my life is now. And so I put everything into it, kind of every experience, everything I wanted to say, everything that I wished I'd said. There's a bit where Emma's on stage and she says to the London crowd, "I thought you were supposed to be cool, but you all look like you need a bloody good wash." And I remember being in a band and wanting to say that, being in a smelly venue, but I was far more like, "Oh, it's wonderful that you're all here tonight. Thank you so much." So she was kind of like my mouthpiece, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, like a wish fulfillment.
Well, yeah.
So, Guy, I think you're going to ask Michelle a question now.
Yeah, what I wanted to just ask Michelle is, you portray a chilling dystopian world in many respects. And in what ways were you predicting how you think that the world is going to be in the future?
I really hope not. I think I was kind of like, I think what it is a warning, really, trying to get people to kind of just to move away from it. But there's some of it I think is quite kind of present and with us. Other bits were a bit more of a punt. So there's like, there's an organisation in the background of the story. They don't really feature that heavily, but called Unity, which is the idea of it is that they're trying to bring together all the religions and the science community and the political sphere all together under one umbrella. The idea being that you, idealistically, you prevent all the conflict, but very quickly it becomes quite an oppressive organisation that's kind of spying on everybody, basically. I felt like that was quite a punt, but having said that, I have had a conversation with my niece in just the last few days where she is actually, she's not a religious person, but she's fascinated by theology, and she says that she can see the joins between science and faith, so maybe it's not that far-fetched. But yeah, I felt like that was quite fictional. But there are other elements where things like the corruption in high places, I kind of feel like we're there without going too deeply into the politics of it. I don't feel like it's that far away from reality. And the climate change was the thing that I really did scare myself about. At the moment, it feels like we're careening towards this conclusion that nobody really wants to think about. And so that's something that does scare me. And it felt quite real. So, yeah, various elements.
It really spoke to me, that Unity organisation that you have in the novel, this idea that, you know, without getting political, I've thought about this a lot recently with the coronavirus. You know, if we were all shopping online, would it be such an issue to the economy if people were actually, these big companies paid their taxes here? You know, this idea of these big conglomerate companies and them just becoming more and more unaccountable, yeah, is an interesting one. So that's fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, I could take up your whole evening with it, but I won't. I'll restrain myself. So I think have I got a question for Helen next? I don't want to, yeah, I think it's my turn, isn't it? And again, this is quite a similar thing, I suppose, but what I want to ask is something slightly different then. That I really, in Facade, what I really kind of remembered and what stayed with me is all the family relationships, the complexity, the sibling rivalry was just so kind of, really, not that I have that rivalry with my siblings, but it just felt so real. And the other things, you know, the fact that, you know, families deliberately not telling each other things and these things go on for years. I know that you didn't base it on your own family now, I'm aware of that, but did you get any side eye from people, and even like not your own family, people that you know that you might go and visit who might be like, is she basing that on me? Am I supposed to be like Rachel, or am I?
That's, I think one of the reasons that I write fiction is because rather than sort of memoir or biography, is because I just really love to make things up. But I think you're right. You know, there are so many, the more you learn about other people and their families, possibly ideas do swirl around and you're picking them up without even knowing. And I'm sure, you know, there are probably tiny little things about my family in there. But I've never consciously, you know, intruded on anybody else's story, and because I kind of feel that that would be for them. But I do sometimes think, you know, I do know loads of people, actually, surprising number, where there's one or more members of the family that are estranged, you know, for whatever reason. They maybe haven't seen them for a long time, which I think is coming a little bit into the Rachel and Imogen idea. And I used to think, well, you know, that's really a shame. What if something happened? What if somebody died? Wouldn't they be sorry? But then I've sort of learnt from friends that are wiser than me that actually sometimes somebody in your family can be so toxic that the only right thing to do is to actually not have anything to do with them, to cut them off, because, you know, our mental health is precious, and we don't want somebody who's sapping our esteem or, you know, really making our life difficult. And we should fill our lives with people that bring joy and that love us. So, you know, those ideas are probably at play in the story, but I've learned perhaps by writing the story to be, you know, a little bit more thoughtful about what other people have to go through, I hope.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm lucky that I've not experienced that, but I do. Yeah, I have had a couple of friends who've said that certain family members, they've kind of tried and realised in the end it's of no benefit to anybody to carry on. You know,
yeah,
if it's just not working.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's not just sort of not having the conversations, but that people seem to take up very fixed positions quite often, and if nobody is prepared to move, you know, or change their view or have a conversation, then things are not going to improve. It's yeah, and that's great, because for people like me and Katie, who I see has just come on the screen, who writes psychological suspense, it means, hi Katie, it means we've got like endless things to explore in our novels, so we can keep on writing for years and years and years. But thanks for the question.
Okay.
Thank you. Ooh, I think we're making really good time. I think it's back to you now, Laurence, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Everybody here, we've heard from three very, very talented authors, and Darkstroke know that they're very talented authors. What you've also heard is a group of three people that have been and will continue to be collaborative, working together, collegiate, sharing, reading each other's books. I think that's an amazing thing. It's your opportunity to ask any questions now in the final 10 or 15 or so minutes of this evening's session. And I wondered if anybody would like to do so, either about influences or about story or about their lives or the characters. Who'd like to ask something? We have something in chat.
Yvonne's got her hand up as well. I can see Yvonne waving at us. Okay,
well, maybe we should. Was it Yvonne that you've got your hand up? I can't see. Do you want to say your question, Yvonne?
Okay.
And
it's a question for Michelle. Your cat's called Lara Blackwell, and I wondered if Philip Pullman had been a big influence, because it seemed to be, from what you were saying, there were hints there. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm afraid. Yeah, you've just made me realise that I may have like minorly plagiarised. Yeah, definitely that kind of vibe of not necessarily talking about disrespecting faith, but about being a little bit cynical about organised religion and where that can lead people to, which is both positive and negative. So I'm not trying to cause any controversy, but definitely when I read his Dark Materials books, I loved that part of the books. I thought it was quite brave of him to kind of go down that road, and I think people objected to the books partly because of that. But I absolutely love Philip Pullman. I think I love him as a man, and I love those books. So yes, I'm afraid She is generally just called Lyra, but she's acquired the second name just because I want to be very specific about it. That's where the name came from. So, but unfortunately, a few years down the line, then I had a daughter, and I kind of wish that I'd left the name for her. But they both exist at the same time, so I can't do that, unfortunately. So my daughter's called Martha. But yes, is the short answer. I absolutely love Philip Pullman's books.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a good question. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much for that. And we'll go to Kate Braithwaite. I don't know if you want to say your question, Kate, or do you want me to? I can read it out if you've got your microphone dipped.
Well, I can let me unmute Kate.
Hello?
Oh, yeah.
Is that working?
Yes.
So I just wondered what everyone was going to be writing next. I'm hoping you're already well into another project. So what is it, just from each of you?
Shall I go first? Yeah, I'm writing yet another psychological suspense. I keep trying to learn from the one before and like make it closer to the genre, but I don't know whether I'll succeed because I've always got other interests and issues that I want to write about as well. But the new one is set in Wales and London, and it's hopefully got multiple twists, and I think it's going to go back and be a bit darker, like my so darker than Facade, a bit more similar to my first novel after leaving the village, with some probably not very pleasant goings on. So it won't be for the faint-hearted.
Well, actually, Helen, on that subject, because I heard your interview. I think you did. Did you do a radio interview with Chapman Spin? And when I heard you talking about after leaving the village, I thought, oh, that sounds. I mean, I thought I was dark, and I thought that is a dark subject. It's human trafficking, isn't it? And so I thought, I'm going to get me that book, I think.
I can't wait to hear what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't you answer the next?
For me, I was juggling 2 outlines. I've done 2 outlines. I had a bit of a technical incident in that my laptop died. So I thought I'd lost an outline, but I think I might have recovered it. So I've got 2 outlines at the moment. One is for a sequel to Tipping Point, but the other one is like a dark urban fantasy. So I've been sort of juggling the 2. I'm not very good at writing 2 things at once. I'm a bit of a sort of focus on one thing. So I think I'm going with the sequel first. So we'll see how that goes. But yes, I'm kind of juggling. I've been a little bit rubbish during lockdown with writing. I kind of lost my mojo a bit, but I'm back on it now. So hopefully I'll start churning it out soon.
It's an interesting thing how one novel can sort of lead on to the next, or one idea can lead on to the next, because I didn't plan it this way, but at the moment I'm writing it's what they call faction. It's a fictional book, but it's based on a real life person and based on research about her. So my next book I'm writing with Sarah Harris Roberts, who wrote a book about Richie Edwards, the vanished Manic Street Preacher guitarist. And we're writing a book about Kristen Fath, who was a female activist, feminist activist, and bassist in the band Hole, Courtney Love's Hole. And she was close to people like Kurt Cobain. And we've been working with her family. They've given us, for the first time, they've released her recordings and her diaries and her photos and things like that. So we've been using all of this research, and I've often late into the night been listening to this voice literally from beyond the grave, with her diary recordings, using all of this research, and we've been turning it into a story as she might have told it, trying to use her voice. So I can obviously see real connections between Dead Rock Stars and what I'm doing next, and it's so interesting how things can bleed into each other,
Fantastic. It sounds like a natural progression, doesn't it?
Thanks to all 3 of you for that, and thank you to Kate for that as well. We have 2 questions in chat. One of them is mine, actually, and the other one looks like it's to me. So I'll try to cope with that. Before I do that, though, I'm looking for other hands up across the line of screens. Oh, Charlie, I can see you've got a hand up. Go ahead, Charlie.
I was going to say to Guy, I loved your story, but being Emma's in her thought process, it was so tiring. How on earth did you manage? I mean, she's constantly sort of evaluating, assessing and evaluating, and I loved it, but I just thought, how on earth did you do that? It was outstanding how you got inside her head.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so kind. I wanted to put in to the character everything that I'd thought and felt that I hadn't shared or hadn't spoken, but also, you know, it goes in a very tragic direction with her. So I don't know where that line is between life and death, where problems become too much and, you know, there's like a breaking point. So there was an element of kind of getting her to say absolutely everything and voicing all of these unsaid things. You know, one thing I really, really wanted is for people to kind of quote stuff that she'd said. And I'm so touched that you said that, because quite a few women who've read the book have said Emma really spoke to me, and they have like favourite lines of hers. And that's never happened before with a novel of mine. So it's kind of quite exciting, but it's also quite thrilling and dark, because I felt like something was being given voice to, which was a bit frightening at times. But yeah, thank you. That's kind of the best answer I can give, really.
Good, thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
I suggest that what we do now, actually, maybe I'll try to tackle Jane's question, and then I could see if there are any other hands up, and then we could try my question that I've asked for everybody. So Jane, I'm trying to get a handle of where you are, Jane. There you are, Jane. Question for Darkstroke, so that's me. What's it been like publishing during the COVID situation? Have there been any positives? Well, positives is a sort of a loose word, isn't it? It's been an interesting situation for all of us, either as writers or readers, or in this case, publishers. I think what I would say is it's certainly focused minds in the sense of what we do as publishers, and probably for authors as well, because, you know, they're working from home by and large. They're in a situation where they're online mostly, and so the situation that we put our authors in is online. When authors sign to us, they become part of a collaborative online community, which is where you're hearing this wonderful collaboration, this wonderful partnership spring out of the hour that you're here with tonight. I think with COVID, it just helps to focus in on that detail and that sense of working together perhaps a little more than before. I'm sure there are other things that it helps, but that's the thing that comes to mind. I'm looking for other hands up. Does anybody else have a question they would like to shout out? I'm not seeing any hands. No, okay, well maybe oh yes, sorry, Helen, you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to say that Guy hasn't mentioned that his book is half set in Camden and half in the Isle of Wight. And as a result of having read his book, I'm actually going to the Isle of Wight tomorrow, because it reminded me that I need to go to the Isle of Wight. So,
what the Isle of Wight I've been craving all of this years is a book about a 27-year-old who's been dabbling in drugs. It's going to do wonders for the tourist board.
I hope so, yeah. The last time, I think I didn't tell somebody this, but the last time I went to the Isle of Wight was at the festival in 2012, with the one that was rained on, all the cars stuck in the mud. And when we got tugged out by an AA rescue, it sped so fast across the field that our windscreen was covered in mud, and we couldn't see, and we were nearly sort of thrown into a hedge. And then Sky TV filmed it all, and we were on Sky TV News. It was really embarrassing.
Well, like you say, I was there a couple of weeks ago. It was so strange that I happened to be there on the day the book came out, and I did a BBC interview, you know, while I was in Seaview on the Isle of Wight. And I know I've banged on about it a bit, but I'm only there kind of at the most 1 or 2 nights, you know, a year. So it was very strange that it happened that night. And what I did is I decided to just walk around and take photos of the, you know, it's very specific in my mind, parts of the certain beaches or pubs or places where certain things happen in the book, and I kind of went around and took photos of them. And it was interesting that those things haven't changed with everything that's going on in the world. These little corners that I'd set this novel in were still there, and, you know, perhaps at some point they'll end up on a blog or something, but it was like returning to the past in a very real way. So yeah, I'm glad that you felt it was worth a visit. That's cool.
I'll tell you when I get back. Thank you.
Have a good travel from tomorrow, and sounds interesting. So my question to 3 of you then, we've known each other for about, 3-4 months now, something like that. I think I've edited all of your books from memory. And you've been a part of the community, you've worked with us to have your book published. The question from me is, what was the most challenging thing that happened or you felt between submitting your book to us and seeing it launch?
Is that a trick question, Laurence?
How long you got, Michelle?
The editing process was a nightmare. For me, I think actually it was surprisingly easy. I think, not easy, that's not true to say, it was really hard work, but there were surprisingly few kind of points where I thought, oh, this isn't working, or, you know, it was, I think it's telling that probably the worst problem I came across was I had to take my flipping Radiohead lyrics out, which I'm still quite bitter about, but I understand why. But that was kind of, to me, it was the worst thing that happened, which if you can say that, then I think you're onto something. So I find it, once we'd signed the contract, it was a pretty smooth process to me and incredibly fast. I think when you said, oh, we'll be published in September, I was like, well, I'm not ready for that. I thought it'd be next year sometime. So, you know, it's been incredible, really.
I think I'd jump in and say pretty much the same. You know, I've sort of experienced publishing process that's much slower than that. And I think that 3 months, well, you know, it's just like a whirlwind. But you haven't really got time to worry about anything too much because suddenly the publication date's upon you and the book is there and you've just got to, you know, get on and promote it as much as you can and hope.
I think what was the most challenging thing for me was not knowing when the book is done. And I've talked about this with Andrew Crumey, and I know he's on the chat, who's an author who was my PhD supervisor. What I found really difficult is I wrote all of this stuff, and I don't know if the two of you can relate to this, but I really enjoyed being in the company of the characters, and I didn't want to not be in their company anymore. And the only way to stay in their company was to keep writing scenes with them. You know, however tough things got, I really kind of loved doing that. Then the novel became, yes, it had been written with a lot of genuine love and enthusiasm, but just kind of a bit baggy. And I remember going on a walk, and it's so interesting how quickly everything has happened with Darkstroke this year. And just on the walk saying to myself, what if I take out everything that's not essential, that I can't, you know, anything I can bear to remove, I'll take it out. And then I had this title, Dead Rock Stars, which was like my kind of, it was a joke that a friend made, you know, how's it going with your dead rock stars type thing. And those two decisions meant that it was finally done. So there was and then Laurence kindly accepted it, you know, really, really quickly. We had a chat and a contract was offered the next day. And what was so curious is there had been years of sending it out to people with different titles. And it was so interesting how a clarity sort of suddenly hit. And then it was not just done, but then published very quickly soon after, you know, literally arrived in the post and then you're holding it. And I can't pretend to understand at what point in the process it is done and the clarity comes, but that was really striking for me.
Really interesting answers. Thank you to all three of you for that, from a personal level. So I'm not seeing any hands up, which means we can move on to the competition winners, I think. Now, Michelle, I think you're getting back to your winner tomorrow, is that right?
Yep, I've just saved all the chat, so I've got all the answers. So I'll get back to whoever wins tomorrow.
Fantastic. And Helen and Guy, are you in a position to say who's won tonight?
I would like to announce that Jenny Worrell is the winner of my quiz. We've privately exchanged emails during this, and she's going to get in touch. So congratulations, Jenny.
Brilliant. Yes, I've got a winner as well. All the replies came to me in private. So this particular winning answer came to me at 8 p.m. So when if anybody thinks that they sent one before 8 p.m, put your hand up now. Otherwise, I'll tell you the answer is Yvonne. Yvonne won. So well done. You'll be winning an Amazon gift card.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants to know, the correct answer is Old Rectory was Jane Austen, Gamekeeper's Cottage was Mellors, the Canal Boat was Keira Knightley, the House in Spain was, well, Stratton was David Hurwood, and I just wish he'd still been there when I lived there, or been there when I lived there. And yeah, the Douglas and Zeta Jones was Spain. So yeah, well done everybody. Thank you for taking part.
Well done to you both, well done. So it's just left for me to close things up, I think, unless anybody wants to say anything finally. You'll notice in the chat that Michelle has pasted in 3 links: my book to Tipping Point, my book to Dead Rock Stars, my book to Facade. If you click on those, or if you copy and paste those into a browser window, that's going to take you through to the Amazon store closest to you, UK, US, whatever. and thereon you can purchase a copy unless you've purchased one already, but buy 2 if you would. I think that's everything for tonight. It's just left for me to thank 3 authors whom it's been a pleasure for us to work with, and thank everybody here from me and from them for your support for them. Thank you very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Before everybody disappears, just want to say thank you to Laurence as well for helping us this evening and keeping us flowing. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks guys, thanks everybody, and thanks for
you
coming.
All the best.
seeing who's got the fastest fingers, I think, aren't we now?
Yeah, it's interesting. Just hold on and work out that we've done everything we have to about the prizes, because I think Guy wants me to send the. Where's he gone? Does he think he could leave? I think he's got. No, I think he wants me to send out.
He's asleep.
Where's he gone?
I don't know.
I didn't see his mum and dad come back in. Oh, Gary, I think you're asleep.
No, no, I'm not.
You're right, actually. It was so gripping. Right, bye, Gary. I'm gonna kick you out.
Good night, guys. Well played.
No.
Yeah.
Andy, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Well done. That was really, really good. Very, very good.
Thanks. Thanks for coming, Peter, as well.
Okay. Cheers, Helen. Good night.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go.
Yeah, nearly there.
Right, I shall leave you then. As it's just the 2 of you, well done. Really good. So well planned and presented.
Thank you. Oh, it was all right, Michelle. It went really well. Your reading was great.
Thank you, and yours. I was I'm glad. Yeah, we did well by preparing, didn't we? I think.
You have to, I think, because so many things can go wrong on this. I have recorded it, so hopefully it has recorded. But
yeah, my sister actually couldn't get in. I don't know whether it was to do with her setup or her version of Zoom or something. So I did say that I'd send her the recording of it.
Fine. Yeah, I don't know what I got. Do you know what happens with the recording, Laurence? Will it just be sat there? Will it be sat on my downloads or?
I think when you go to log on zoom.us or whatever it's called, you'll get a list of all the ones you've recorded. It just appears. Okay. I think it's a massive file. That's the problem. So you'll need to have a look and see how big it is before you start sending it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's only for us anywhere. Put it in the Dropbox perhaps or something.
Yeah, that's what I was going to suggest maybe.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, fab. So I've just saved at the last minute. I've saved quite a lot of versions of the chat, but I've just saved at the last minute. So we should have everything there, apart from I won't have the ones that went to you personally, Helen, but that's fine. You don't need them now, do you?
I've announced it now, so that's fine. Yeah, no, that's good. Brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Another glass of wine.
Yeah, I haven't had one yet. I'm going to have one now. Then I'm going to pack my bag for the Isle of Wight.
Oh yeah, enjoy. Yeah, sounds good.
I hope you have a lovely time.
Yeah, it's not great weather, but never mind. Cool. No. Okay then.
Nice to be with you.
Take care.
Thanks, Laurence, as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye. See you soon. Have a nice weekend. Not that